going to discuss a very important concept called functions. And in Python, well, in general, a function is a way to reuse code. And I'll go ahead and I'll demonstrate one, and then I'll talk you through it. So first, to start a function, you use the keyword def, and then you name your function whatever you want. So we're going to make a function that prints hello world. Let's just try the very simplest first. So we'll say def, we name it print hello world. So this tells me what the function does. I have what the function does in the name, which is good habit. And then afterwards, I put a parentheses after that word that I made up, or the function name, of course. And then I put a colon here and I press enter. And then I can put the contents of the function underneath. So I said that this was going to print hello world. And so I'll just say print hello world. Okay. Now I pressed enter, and now I'm outside of the function, so I'm no longer indented, and I'm going to call the function. So to call the function, you put the name followed by the parentheses. So you put just this part. So I'm going to run it, and here it goes. It says hello world. So what it's doing is it's identifying the name and it's finding it here. And then, okay, well, what does print hello do? Print hello world do? And then it goes into the code that's underneath. And something interesting inside of these parentheses, you decide if there are any parameters that you need to include. So in this case, we don't need any parameters. We don't need anything to perform the code. But if we did, then we would put it inside the parentheses. So to demonstrate this, let's go ahead and create another function. Let's call it def print. How about print name hello? And this function is going to take a person's name and it's going to print hello and then their name. So name, it's going to take a variable, a string variable called name, and then I put colon here, and then I'm going to put print hello plus name. So I need an extra space here so that we have a space inside. Okay. And then I'm going to call the function print name hello. And then I need a variable. I need one called name. Let's go ahead and create a variable that is called name that the user gives us. So input, enter your name. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and run this. So it says enter your name. And then it says, hello, Prof.Otters. So it's still kind of, I'm sorry, it's still a little interesting for me to see my name with the word professor in front of it. I'm still relatively new. So thank you guys so much for being patient with me and helping me out whenever I need it. You guys are the best. Okay, enough of that. So this is how you create a function that takes a parameter. The parameter is this part right here, the part that goes in the parentheses. And this is something you do when you need to use a variable from outside of the function. So the variable outside of the function was called name. We can call it whatever we want. We can call it let's go ahead and change it to your name. Your name. And then this is your name. You press run and it should work the same. So I'll say Prof.Otters. So it works the same. Well, why does it work the same? I thought that it required a variable named name. No, it requires a string variable. It could be called anything, but it's going to require a string variable. So in this case, your name was the string variable. So it receives a string and it says, okay, cool. Like we're using this string variable. And so it runs pretty much the same. It's saying the name, it's giving the name to a variable that it's accepting as an argument. And so that's how that works. Okay. Um, there's also this concept that functions are not simply able to perform a code, they're able to do something called returning. And to return is to give back something after the code finishes executing, after the function is done. And I'll demonstrate what I mean. So we'll create another function. Let's say the function's called add two nums and it takes two numbers. All right, let's name them num1, num2. And then we're going to have a variable called sum. That looks like a keyword. Added equals num1 plus num2. And then we use the keyword return. And what do we want to return? We want to return the sum of the two numbers, which is a variable that we called added. All right. So now I'm going to call this add, caps lock, add two nums. And we need to create, well, we don't need to create, we could actually just put them right here. Let's put 3 and 4. So I'm able to enter in these parameters. I don't need to create num1. I don't need to do this. I can put the numbers in there directly. I just normally don't do that because that would be hard coding. So let's just 2 equals 4, and then we'll use the variable names. But if for demonstration purposes, this would have been fine. I just want to demonstrate both versions of this. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and run it. Oh, my bad. I did not put the correct name. I put a space. That was silly. All right, now I'll try it. So it doesn't do anything. And the reason why that is because we called the function and we didn't designate anything. So remember I said that it returned, we had it return a number, and that number is the sum of these two numbers. So since it's returning a number, let's go ahead and call this variable result, and we're going to set it equal to the add two nums function. Right? Since it's returning an integer, we can assign it a variable name. So that's still not going to show anything in the console, so I have to print result. Now I'm going to run it. And the answer is 7 because we have it print result. Result is storing the addend, the summation of num1 and num2. And it's being stored in this variable called result. And then we're printing what that result is. So we've come to the part of the video where I need to explain scope. And scope is a concept based around what the program sees and what a function is able to see. That sounds weird because we don't really think about these concepts, these abstract concepts having eyes or anything. But it's the way that I'm going to use to explain this. So let's create a variable. First of all, let's create another function, def, and then this one will be print. We'll do print greeting again, and then we'll say the greeting takes a name, just like we did before, and then we'll have it say message equals hello, how are you today? Hello, how are you today? Let's have it go like this. Okay, So now I'm going to print message plus name. And I can do this because both of these are strings. Message is a string and name is a string. And now I'm going to call the function because this doesn't do anything unless I call the function. So I'm going to say print greeting, and then we'll say Kelly. I hope I'm not driving people crazy putting lower cases where they don't belong. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and run this. Hello, how are you today, Kelly? Um, So that works out fine. But the point is, I wanted to show you this variable called message. Message is a variable that only exists in the print greeting function. So if I try to call message outside of the function, I get an error. It's telling me that message is not defined. And that's correct. It's not defined. It shows up in this function here, but it's not part of the main code. So functions, variables that you create within your functions are only seen by the function. The way to circumvent this is to put the word global in front. So you see that's a keyword. So now it should be recognizable by the entire code. So I'm going to press run. Oh, I have an error on line 2. 1 second. Okay, I saw what I was doing wrong. I tried to call the variable name message before I created it. So I'm just going to create a function, print function, and we're going to have it print greeting. Here's how we'll do this. And then this will be Kelly. So we're going to have it say hi to Kelly. And we also want to print the variable message. So what I was doing wrong before was I was trying to print the variable message before it had even happened. So the function needs to happen first, and then that means that this is created. So global message is created after that function is called. It doesn't exist before that, and that's why that wasn't working. So now I'm going to press run, and I get, hello, how are you today, Kelly? None, because it doesn't return anything. And then hello, how are you today is what message is. So that's the way to circumvent a local global variable conflict. And let's see, I'm hoping we can do one more example, and we'll try to use as many concepts as we can from it. So let's create a function called divides nums, and we'll say it takes num1, comma, num2. And we'll say it returns num1 divided by num2. So you can have it return, well, this wouldn't be an expression, but you would have it return this kind of thing, this operation. If you want, it's the same thing as writing it this way. And please notice that I'm adding spaces inside between, and that is for readability. And I want you guys to get in the habit of doing that. So if you don't already do that, like please put spaces in between your code. So I'm going to return result. So this is the same thing as what we had before. So you can do either one of those. Sometimes people just like the other one better because it saves lines of code. But if you're debugging something or if you're doing something complex, try to do it this way because you want to reduce complexity. And reducing complexity will help you create your code and debug it more efficiently. Okay. So now I'm going to ruin the code. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and have it print divides nums, and we're going to put 10 and 5. And I'm going to go ahead and run it. And then I also want to try to use global, so global result, and then let's see if it works this way, like so. So I'm going to put global result, and then result equals this, and then we're going to return result. We're going to print the result, and we're going to print the function, and we're going to try to print the variable that we created inside of the function. So 2.0 and 2.0, because division returns a float. So even with two integers as inputs, it returns a float. So if I remove this line, global result, and I just have it like this, I get an error because it says result isn't defined. So the other thing too is that something that I was doing that wasn't correct was I was putting global in front, and you can't do it this way. This won't work. You have to put it here first. You have to first say, we're going to have a variable that's global. Then you say, here's what it is. So you can't just do that all in the same line. And that just about does it. So some key takeaways: what variables that you create in the function can't be accessed outside of the function. It can't be accessed in the main code unless you use global. And you won't, for the most part, most of the functions that you make, you're not going to have to do that. It's just something that you need to know about. You also have to know that functions can return something or they don't return something. So sometimes functions just perform like you saw what we did with that print statement, where it printed hello. And then we had one that completed it summed two numbers and it returned the result of that sum. Um, and those are the key takeaways that I want you to remember about functions before you go to do the labs. So thank you so much for listening and have a wonderful day.